Hey, welcome to our next week of teaching virtually and or of working at home virtually. But we are going to talk about a new topic, and you can see it on my screen. It's how to multiply fractions. And I think this is pretty hard. We'll do our best, but this is the last thing that I have not covered this year or covered well. So we're going to do this, and then in the following weeks, we're going to do just review work and make sure that we've gotten everything. So whether that's at school or virtually, we don't know yet, but we will work on that. But I want to talk about how to multiply fractions. I think this is a very difficult concept. So I'm going to actually make two videos. This video showing you the how, and then we'll work through workbook pages together in the next little tutorial. But here we go. So how do you start? What do you do when you multiply fractions? Well, let's think about this problem. And by the way, I'm very proud of my my little slideshow that I made. I've got, you have 5 monsters, and you went to the movies to see Frankenstein. If each monster ate 3/4 pound of popcorn, how much popcorn did they eat altogether? Well, you could do a repeated addition problem, which is probably what you were already thinking. But I want us to start multiplying and not using repeated addition. So if we come down here, there's different ways to solve it. Just like I said, you can add 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 and get 15/4, which the hard part is making that into a mixed number, because remember, that's improper. So you'll have to make that 3 and 3/4. You can take 3 wholes out of that. Just like this next problem says, I can do 3/4 and 1/4, take 1/4 from here and get 4/4. And then you'll have 2/4 and another 2/4. You have another whole, and then you can take another whole out, and then you have 3/4 left over. You can draw a picture. You can use fraction circles to solve it if you have them. But so that is, different ways that we can solve this problem. I'm going to teach you another way, and that is to multiply them. So let's multiply some fractions by whole numbers. So I used Gertie, because Gertie's my dog, as my example this time. So Gertie wants to make 2 smoothies for breakfast. She needs a 1/3 cup of milk to make each one. How many cups of milk does she need? Well, she needs 2 times 1/3, right? Or we could do 1/3 plus 1/3, but we want to move to multiplication. So 2 times 1/3 equals 2/3. Remember, denominators don't change, so we're going to take 2 and we're going to multiply it by the numerator, which is 2, and we're going to put it all over the denominator. So 2 times 1/3 equals 2/3. Now I know that's right because 1/3 plus 1/3 is 2/3, and you guys should all be able to do that. So what if Gertie wanted to make 3 smoothies? Then it would be 3 times 1/3, which would equal 3/3. Think of it as 3 groups of 1/3. So it would be 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3, which equals 3/3. And if she wanted to make 4 smoothies, you would times it by 1/3. It would be 4/3. And I have a little note down here, denominators do not change. Okay, so if you're still confused, I think I would still be confused. Let's look at something else. So we're going to practice. Oops. So here we go. I keep moving my, highlighted everything, moving my face around the screen. But here we go. 1/3 times 6. So say we wanted to multiply 1/3 times 6. So what you're essentially doing is 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3. That's a lot. So I want you to learn how to do it a little more quickly. So if you would multiply 1 times 6, multiply the numerator by the whole number, and get 6, and you would put it all over the denominator. Remember, denominators don't change. Place everything over the denominators, and you get 6/3. 6/3 equals 2, because 6/3 can be decomposed into 3/3 and 3/3, which equals 2 wholes. Or if you remember, I don't know, that fractions are division problems, this would be 6 divided by 3, which is 2. So lots of different ways that you can solve these problems. Let's try some. If you follow the rule, which is right here, this is important, multiply the numerator by the whole number and place everything over the denominator. So here we go. So I'm going to get my little pen out. So I have 1/3 times 4. Well, I'm remembering the rule. I could do 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to do, you can do that if you would like, but it takes up so much space and it's a lot of writing. So I'm going to remember my rule. 1, the numerator times the whole number, which would be 4. And then I put it all over the denominator, which is 3. Remember, all year, none of our denominators have ever changed. When we add and we subtract, the denominator stays the same. It doesn't change. So we have 4/3. So if you remember me talking, that doesn't look like an equal sign. If you remember us talking about how we can't have, this is an improper fraction. Remember, when the numerator is larger than the denominator, we can't leave it like that. We'd have to simplify it. So I know that I can take a whole out of this. So I'm going to take 3/3 out, because that's a whole, and I'm going to add 1/3, because that's what's left over. So 3/3 plus 1/3 is 4/3, and that equals 1 and 1/3. What do you think? Now, I know this is just a little tutorial, and we're going to practice. I'm going to have you get out your workbooks and follow along with me in just a minute. But that's what, and that should help solidify some of this if you don't get it. So let's look at 1/2 times 4. Well, I could do 1/2 plus 1/2 plus 1/2 plus 1/2. But I want us to move towards the multiplication. So it's the numerator times the whole number. So 1 times 4 is 4. And I'm going to do a diagonal over the denominator. So 4/2 equals, well, I could do 4/2 equals 2 wholes. And the reason that's right, because I could do 2/2 plus, that's equals 1 whole, plus another 2/2 equals another whole. And so 1 plus 1 is 2. That's why that works. So if you missed this when we were adding and subtracting fractions and mixed numbers, it's like another review for that, because you need it to be able to multiply fractions. So that's it. Here's the next one, 2/3 times 10. I don't want to write out 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3 10 times. So I'm going to use our new rule, and I'm going to take 2, our numerator, and times it by the whole number, which is 10. So that leaves me with 20. Ooh, that looks terrible. So 20/3. Yikes, that's a lot. So you can decompose that to 3/3 plus 3/3 plus 3/3 plus 3/3 to get the whole number. Or you could just say, well, 20 divided by 3, I know that I can get really close. So 6 times 3 is 18. That gets me really close to 20. And I have 2 left over and 2/3. So the answer to that problem would be 6 and 2/3. That is really hard. For some of you, it's going to be really, really difficult. For others, it's not going to be hard, but you'll have to decompose this to find out how many wholes are in there. And I'm just telling you there's 6, because I know that 3 times 6 is 18. It gets me really close to 20. And then I have 2 left over. But you can 6 times take out the whole and keep doing it 6 times, and you will get 18, and then you will have 2/3 left over. This is just easier. So the last one I have down here is 8/10 times 9. So wow, look at this, guys. So I'm going to have 72 over 10 when I multiply those together. Because I did 8 times 9, my numerator times my whole number is 72, and then I put it all over 10. Well, you could take out the wholes, which would be 10/10, 10/10, 10/10, 10/10. Or you could just say, well, 72 divided by 10, I know that there are 7 10s in 72, right? Because 7 times 10 is 70, and that leaves me with 2 left over and 2 10s. Yikes, that's a lot. That is an awful lot of work that you're having to do on that problem. All right, so I want to move down to the next. I'll get to my pointer and see if I can move to the next screen. Oh, here we go. All right, so I want to I'm going to just ask you a question. We're going to kind of solve it together. This is one of the constructed response things. I would have given it to you to work in a group or whatever, but I just like these, so I thought we'd do one together today. So while cleaning out his desk, Luca, I used you as my example, Luca places all of his pencils in his pencil bag. He has 12 pencils, and of the pencils, 3/4 of them need to be sharpened. So most of the pencils need to be sharpened. How many of Luca's pencils need to be sharpened? So this is what kind of 3/4 looks like. So I grabbed a picture. So I have 12 times 3/4. If I follow my rule, 12 times 3 is 36. I put it all over 4. Well, that equals 9, because 36 divided by 4 is 9. And remember, a fraction is a division problem. You could take out 4/4, 4/4, 4/4, 4/4 9 times, and you'll figure out there were 9 holes in there. Need to be sharpened. So that leaves only 3 that are sharpened. So that's just one of the questions I would have asked you in your group. So I added that on here today. There are several more things I have left on here. This week, I want you to do, and I know it, and I have it assigned to you, and this is what it's going to look like. They're going to be asking you questions like this. And so I wanted to go over this. The class code, again, is LaughMath220. Your username is your first name, last initial. Andy, I'm using you as my example. Andy A, and then password is Mustangs. So Michael James, yours would be Michael J, and password would be Mustangs, or anybody else. So pretty easy. Some of you have already gotten on because I have given you these as little just bonuses if you just want to work on them. But this week, one of your assignments will be to finish the I know it on multiplying whole numbers by mixed numbers. So I wanted to go over it. Here's a screenshot. I did it. So I think that you can do it. Some of them are super easy, and some you have to figure them out. You can't just type in anything. So you can't write down. So if you follow my rule on this one, I'm going to get my pen back out. If you do 9 times 9, you get 81. And you have to put that all over the denominator, which is 10, 81 tenths. I can't leave my answer as 81 tenths. So you have to do some fancy footwork here. And this is the right answer, 8 1/10. So I have to ask myself, how many 10s are in 81? Well, I know that there are 8 10s in 81. If you don't know that, then you'll have to break this down and decompose it into 10 tenths plus 10 tenths plus 10 tenths plus 10 tenths plus 10 tenths. You have to do that 8 times. And then you will have 1/10 left over. Okay, so they will ask, there'll be a few of these. You have to do 15 of them, 15 questions, and then if you bomb it or you can't get any of these right, some of them you don't have to do anything fancy. It just comes out. It's like, so it's no big deal. But if you can't do these, then I will probably give it to you again. So watch this video another time and maybe it'll stick, or at least go over the workbook pages with me that we're going to do next, and then maybe it'll make a little bit more sense. Okay? That's about it. All right, that is part of your work this week that I want you to get done. The next, I want to see what's on here next. Oh, here's some different ways to look at multiplication of fractions. If you have 5 times 3/10, again, 5 times 3 is 15 over 10. It looks like 15 tens. So here are 15 tens, which would then equal a whole, because how many tens are in 15? 1. And then you have 5 tenths left over, or 1.5. So these are just some different ways to look at the multiplication. 6 3/4. Well, if you follow the rule that I told you, 6 times 3 is 18/4. 18/4 is the same thing as 6 times 3/4. Here's a picture of what it would look like. 6 3/4 would look like that. And if you put them all together, you would end up with 4.5. Because how many 4s are in 18? 4. That would be 16. And then you have 2/4 left over. 2/4 is the same thing as a half. So this is just a different way to look at it. Then at the end of the week, I have this mini assessment on here for you to work through and to turn into me. This is what is your grade this week. This, and I'll give you a grade also for your I know it, okay? But that is a lot of information crammed into a little bit of time. But just think, this is all here for you to work through, so you can keep going through it. You can keep listening to this over and over and over and over again. And just be like me telling you over and over and over and over again. But I'm also going to add some other videos of some other teachers maybe teaching you how to multiply whole numbers by fractions. And you can listen to those to help you understand. And that's it for today. I will make another video where you can work through your workbook pages with me. You won't have to turn those into me, and I'll tell you that on that video. But that is it for today. I will see you soon. Bye.